Hello and welcome to the Green Profit Academy Pros podcast. This show digs into the challenges in growing a lawn care and landscape business while maximizing your profit. I'm Christeen
And I'm Steve Bousquet. We are the green industry experts in profit, growth, and leadership. Hello, Christeen. How are you doing today?
I am good. It's a Friday. Fridays are always beautiful days to me.
It is a Friday, and it is in November. It's cloudy and gray here, but still there seems to be a lot of energy on this Friday for some reason. So in today's episode, we're going to explore the topic of developing and growing your leadership team in a business, in particular your business.
Yeah, and I'm really excited to talk about this because it wasn't intentional that this was going to be the episode that we recorded when we got back from our Mind Your Own Business retreat, right? Because we just got back this last Friday. We all returned back from all the attendees that were there. And it was the first one that we had emerging leaders come to. So we had not only the business owners there, but also their emerging leaders. And it was just a phenomenal experience to see how the emerging leaders showed up, how involved and connected they were, like what they were learning. And then also seeing how some of the other business owners that didn't have their emerging leaders there, seeing how the emerging leaders of other companies were showing up and really kind of inspiring like what's possible. So it's an exciting episode. We're coming back from a lot of energy around business owners and emerging leaders, a lot of positivity. So I'm excited to talk about this today.
Yeah, I was pretty impressed with how these emerging leaders showed up. You know, they have been getting coaching with us the entire year, and they showed up at this retreat that we had, the Green Profit Academy Mind Your Own Business retreat in Granville, Tennessee. It was a great experience, and I was really impressed with, you know, how they showed up, and they had to really participate at a high level, and the vulnerability and honesty that was there. Their awareness surrounding the mission, vision, and purpose and immutable laws of their company, and how they stepped into that and supported not only the owner of the company, but also, you know, all of the team members that work there.
Yeah, it was awesome to see that and see the level of engagement.
So let's have an explanation of the role and significance of leadership in a small business.
Yeah. So, you know, what does this look like? And I think this is something many years ago, Steve, you and I were on the fence of like, I hear ya, but like, what do you mean? You know, like, what do you mean as how am I supposed to show up as a leader? What am I supposed to do? And from my experience, you know, understanding how to really be a leader and step into that and how I needed to show up for my team, that made a huge difference for me. And knowing, okay, what's my role and how am I supposed to show up and interact with these people who are supposed to be following me, right? And then how can I support them in their role? And this was something that it took a little bit of time to, you know, find my way through and then also connect with my team and help them understand like, hey, this is what I need you to do. This is, you know, how I need you to show up. Now we have systems and processes in place that really support this, and it's clear. So it's kind of like second nature to us to just be able to show up and know, okay, here's this person's role. This is the strengths that, you know, this person needs to hold in the business. And, you know, this is how they can impact, you know, the outcomes in the company as well.
And for me, the leadership really, you know, went from show up, work hard, or be fired, and not very inspiring. But that's the old economy. That was kind of the old way of thinking. And then, you know, we have all these millennials, and money is important to them, but it's not everything. So I had to really come to grips with my leadership role in my own company. And it really started with what was going to be the mission and vision of my company that I could share with other people, especially my clients and especially my team members, so that they had a clear vision of what we're about, what we do, and why we do it. So I struggled with that. I kind of had some, I would call it a corporate mission that I thought it was cute and it was professional, but it wasn't meaningful really to me. And if it wasn't that meaningful to me, how do I share that with my team and even in my community? So, doing the mission, vision, and purpose work, it really brought that to ground level to me. I could speak all of that from my heart every day, no matter where I go. So it wasn't just some corporate kind of mission to outperform and out deliver at some level of unreasonable expectation in all cases everywhere. That's just kind of like blah blah blah. So, developing a real mission, purpose, vision, and also the immutable laws. So now everybody in the company knows what to stand for. So it really got me to understand that my job as the CEO and the owner of the company is to support the mission and support the members that support the mission. And it's clear, it's everywhere in my company. Does everyone know it off the top of their head? Most likely not, but they know in their hearts. And that is the biggest difference.
Yeah, and that was something we started to do pretty regularly, not just talking about it in our quarterly, conversations with our team to where we're going over our quarterly KPIs, OKRs, like what we've accomplished, where we were at. But we start out every meeting with what is our mission, our vision, our core values, who do we serve, right? What's our unique offering? So we talk about that multiple times a year. We also bring it up, in our one-on-ones as well and our huddles when we come together. So we consistently tied our actions and our activities and our focus back to the language of our mission, vision, and purpose and our immutable laws. And that really helped our team understand, well, like, what direction are we going? How should we show up? It almost was creating this organic decision tree in our company of, well, we would do it this way because our core values, our immutable laws support this. Well, we would do it that way because we only serve these types of clients in the company. So I think that really kind of put the foundation there. The next stage that we went to was defining, their job descriptions, right? What is their role in the company? And what does it support? And what are the expectations of the most important outcomes? So we created that for each position in the company. And then we sit down and we talk about this. Like, when somebody's hired, they actually get a job description. They understand what they're supposed to be performing and producing in the company. And they also understand what KPIs support their role. Like, what is the outcome that they are specifically responsible for? And what does that contribute? So it really helped us sit down and have a process in place just by having these job descriptions and a space for this to be communicated. This is what we expect of you in your role. This is how we need you to show up. And this is what you're responsible for. And then properly delegating to them to take on those tasks and those responsibilities and checking in with them to make sure that it was successful. So this really allowed the space and the permission for our team to execute on their tasks and responsibilities and own them and understand, this is what you need from me. And it's very, black and white. And I think that, the explanation of what they do, how they do it, and how they're supposed to show up, and us communicating it as leaders really gives them a solid ground to stand on and a confidence as well that will continue to build as they perform their duties.
And, I agree with everything you just said, but it's a daunting task as an entrepreneur, especially free spirit leaders who don't have the task. So, I'm free spirit leader. I'm not task focused at all. And so really I had to be, aware of that and just be honest about it. I'm not going to do that. So who's on my team that can do that? So I didn't have to be the champion of creating all these role and mission for each role. Have somebody on your team who loves to do that, loves Excel, loves to create content, loves documentation. If we're in the field all the time, or even if our head, we're selling, we're running jobs, we're setting up stuff, where do we find that space to do that? It's so important to have it done, though, that we don't have to do it. We can create a champion in our company, or even hire someone, hire a person to make these and write these roles. So it's clear, because on Gallup's hierarchy of engagement, the first one is understand what is expected of you. So if we don't fulfill that, hey, letting people know what we expect from them, we're never going to get past the first level of engagement in the company, which means you have higher turnover, lower productivity. It just creates this constant issues and problems in the company. And there's a lot of micromanaging. So when I find myself micromanaging years ago, I always look, it was because I had crappy job descriptions or no job descriptions. Get in a truck and go was kind of our training years ago. And it created me needing to be there all the time, constantly chasing people, training people, what I thought was training, but it was really chasing them around. So if you're struggling to create job descriptions and role missions, find someone that can help you.
Yeah, and that's some of the unique challenges that we might have in a small business when building a strong leadership team, right? Is we may not be the champion. So I love that you shared that, Steve, because there's some things I'm not good at. And you know what? I don't want to be good at them. I don't want to do them. I don't want to know how they work. Like with marketing, it's like somebody does the marketing. I'm like, don't tell me how it's done. I don't want to learn that. I don't want to be good at that. I want to spend my time in things that I'm good at, that, I enjoy doing, that I'm really going to bring something to the table, to get done. So I love the idea of know when it's not your job, because it may not be your job to build out the structure to develop that leadership team. So who is that? And then it's going to also give, I think, the support that we need as small business owners of making sure the right people are in the right roles, doing the right things, because we want to be aware of who's on our team and who has those strengths, or we're just kind of flipping tasks out to everybody, not knowing if that person's going to be great at that task. And if they're not great at that task, there's only going to be a few outcomes, right? It's not going to get done. It's not going to get done well. And the last is you're going to have to go back and fix it. And we see that a lot in small businesses. I've experienced it myself. We assign somebody a task, and then they're like, oh yeah, I did that task. And then we go back and we look at that task and we're like, what the heck is this thing? Like, what were they thinking? Like, this thing's a mess. And then we're like, we're going to have to tear the whole thing down and rebuild it. This was not anything what we needed. And it was just realizing we didn't have the right people in the right roles doing the right things. And when we became more aware of that, things got easier, because it's, business is hard enough than, going against the grain with our people.
Yeah, and creating these role descriptions and mission for the roles, can be like overwhelming. But when other people are doing it, it's like they're just like, okay, this is the roles, right? We have a lawn technician. There's a junior and a senior lawn technician, right? What does the junior technician know and responsible for, right? Reading the route books, doing their routes, making sure that their production is at a certain level, cleaning up at the end of the day, letting people know that if something needs to be repaired. So you can just start out with a list of 6 things, and then somebody can build all the details out for you. There's the office manager, there's the bookkeeper, there's the manager. So in the lawn care landscape business, you're going to have the lawn maintenance foreman, and then you're going to have his helper, and you're going to have the landscape foreman, then you're going to have the landscape helper or assistant. So there's not a ton of positions. And one of the cheats, and my team has used it, we pull the descriptions off of the internet. What's the job description off the internet? And then we tweak that, like where we don't need them to do this, but we need them to do that. But it gets us close. It's like, it just gives us a framework, and it's kind of like a Google Maps. Hey, this is over here. Is if you want to go over here, this is what that looks like, and then you can go from there. And having the wrong people in the wrong spots is definitely going to slow everything down.
I think one of the other biggest challenges that's most business owners face too is you have someone on your team who's gotten you here, but they're not the right person to get you there. So it's very hard. They're connected to this person. They're like, oh, they've been here for this long. We couldn't possibly let them go. Well, we really need to fill this other role. This person should be promoted into this role. And the reality is they're the wrong person for that role. They don't have, maybe the mindset or the skill sets that you need to really fill that role. So I think that's another challenge that some small business owners have, is they're so invested with somebody who's been at their company for so long that they struggle with not allowing that person into a leadership role. They feel obligated, or even possibly letting that person go. So it's really stunting the growth and the culture of the company, and it's an obstacle in developing the leadership team as well, because they're so emotionally attached to this individual and they feel obligated.
Yeah, a lot of small businesses are, especially the owners, get connected to the people that work there, and the business outgrows them. I've gone through that where we've had people that we've had to, let go, move on, because they weren't able or willing to grow in the direction the company needs. So that's a big challenge, is letting those people go, or finding, I think one of my biggest faults really was having talented people and not being able to recognize the talent and leadership capabilities of them, that they had in my company. And then once I did recognize it, how do I develop that? Not knowing where to turn to develop their leadership abilities, because I'm not a leadership at that time. Now I am a leadership developer, but at that time, 20 years ago, I was not. So, and that's how I kind of ended up here, was finding out how to train my team and develop the leaders in my company. So most of the people who are listening to this are not leadership development. They're running their business day to day. They came to work early. They got their crews out. They went on sales calls. Then they had to do estimates, and then they, had to make sure trucks were fixed. So their hands are full. So that is really a challenge of, how do we identify who's going to be the next emerging leaders in our company?
Yeah, and I think some of the points that you made are really good, because another challenge, I think, is the mindset of lack of investment in people, right? And our team members are our biggest asset in our company. Who's showing up? What job are they doing? What's the outcome that they're producing every day? How are they supporting each other? So one of the things that I've consistently seen over the years, and I even had to kind of get my head wrapped around it, is investing in my people. And whether that was investing in their leadership training and development to, keep them up to par with all the things I was doing as the business owner, right? Because otherwise I was just going to outgrow my team. But I was kind of afraid, like, well, if I invest in them, they'll leave, right? But then that whole conversation came into play as, but if I don't invest in them, and what if they stay? And then what? What's the outcome there? So there is an opportunity to really, ask yourself that question, what will I get out of my team when I invest in them? And what could this look like? Like, what's possible? And I think it's really important that as business owners, we're investing in ourselves to grow as leaders, to grow as entrepreneurs. We need to invest in our team, whether this is, their training that they're going to get as leaders, that development training, or even being willing to pay more than you have before to level up the quality of people you're hiring. And we ran into this too, to where we were looking at, like, well, we need a next level person, but man, they're going to be, 20, 30, $40,000 more than what we typically pay. And finally, when I realized that, and I was willing to roll the dice on it and do the work to hire that person, it changed the business. It was the exact person that I needed to fill that role and to show up and support me, was someone at that level. So I think investing in their training and development, and then investing in the salaries to level up the people that you're bringing into the company to change the entire dynamic, that is a challenge that business owners and entrepreneurs, I feel that they have, is getting over that hump of, yes, I'm going to put my money here. and it's going to be scary, but it's worth the investment.
Yeah, and investing is scary, right? And that is a great saying, well, what if I spend all this money and they leave? And, the scarier part is what if you don't spend any money and they stay? And you have to live with that. And that's why owners are so chained to their business. And, I spent 20 something years completely chained to my business because I wasn't developing my leaders. I didn't know how, I didn't have the path. So one of the things, and you'll hear me say on this podcast before, culture isn't having a barbecue on a Friday. Culture is every hour, every day. And training for our leadership team is very similar. It's making sure that they have a continued path and a continued place and space to learn and develop. So it's not a conference for 2 days once a year. It's not a class that is like 2 hours long or half a day once a year. It's a continuing process because as they grow, they're going to have new questions, new challenges. And as they step up into the leadership role of the company, they're going to be facing things they've never faced before. They're going to have questions that they didn't even know existed. And they're going to be put in opportunities that they're newly aware of. So, and if you're doing it just once a year for a couple of days, then, okay, you got to wait the whole next year for that person to get more training, coaching, education. So, that's why that continued education and development, we have a 1,000-day development plan in my company. So they know they're on a track of developing for 3 years. And then we'll go beyond that. But we don't always scare people, 1,000 days is enough of a commitment, but it's just like culture. It's a long-term, every day, every hour. It's not a place you land. It's never done.
Yeah, because you have a culture whether you develop it or not, right? So it's like, are you being intentional about what your culture consists of? Or are you just letting it run wild to develop itself and let the people you hire determine how your culture is going to be? So, we could either be intentional and responsive to our culture or unintentional and reactive and manage chaos. It's like those are your monkeys and that's your circus. Whether you want them or not, they are there.
Right. And one of the things I hear all the time is if my people could only think more like the owner. And, my question is, well, have you shown them the way to think more like an owner? Have you invested in them to show them what ownership looks like? And I don't mean like legally in the ownership sense of equity, but ownership and responsibility, ownership in supporting the mission, ownership in supporting the members that support the mission. And when I ask that question, what have you done? And it'll be sporadic. So, it's very much like anything else. It's like relationships. It's like health, right? I can't eat a salad on Saturday and say I ate healthy all week. I can't go to the gym every other week or, 2 days a year and say I'm developing my strength. It has to be a consistent basis over a long period of time.
Yeah, I agree.
Core Growth Strategies provides business growth management solutions through cloud accounting, bookkeeping, and strategic business consulting programs. Our team works with small businesses in lawn care and landscape and trade industries throughout the U.S. We increase our clients' business acumen by creating business performance transparency through financials and strategic advisement based on industry best practices and benchmarks. Our experienced team provides support, guidance, and coaching, thereby allowing our clients to connect with viable data and discover their own solutions. Core Growth Strategies programs and services are designed to get your business from where it is now to where you have always dreamed it to be. Visit us today at coregrowthstrategies.com and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn. Don't miss our exclusive limited time podcast special. Just mention promo code GPA Pro to any member of our team during your complimentary consultation, or enter the promo code on our site when you sign up for one of our online programs. That's promo code GPA Pro.
Okay, Christine. So now we're going to move on to identifying and nurturing potential leaders. How do we do this?
Yeah, and I think that's a great question, right? Because we all start there and we start in different places because some of us have that natural tendency to lead and some of us don't, right? Or some of us think, I'm not a natural leader. And some of us are like, oh, I can lead anybody, just move out of my way. So we're all starting in different places, when we're looking at like, who are our leaders? How are we going to lead them? And then also the people on our team. Companies are in different places, and the people that show up in different times, you're going to be looking at the different potentials. So I think some of the strategies that we have used in our company with our leaders is, one, we've looked at like, what are their strengths, right? What are they really good at? And what lane should they really stay in? So it's like we have some people on our team that are they're really good at, let's say, maintenance accounting. They're phenomenal at it. They do a great job. Then we have these other people that not only are they good at maintenance accounting, but they love to do like renovations, right? Like they're kind of like a jack of all trades, So they're like, oh, I love to get into this and I love to get into that. And then, oh, I love to talk to clients, which is not usual for accountants. So we kind of have some social accountants, right? And then we have some other people on our team that they're administrative people, and they support the company and they support the team, and they have this diverse set of skills. And so I know I can use that person in so many different areas where I'm like, okay, you can go do some marketing and you can help design the structures and the SOPs in the company, and you can do this and you can do that. So we're just really tapping into their strengths and where they show up. We also look at how much responsibility are they taking, or are they wanting to take? Are they always owning everything? So that's really important to me when I look at our leaders. And then I also look at how coachable they are. Who's on our team that's really coachable as they continue to step into roles that they learn and grow so quickly, it's like wildfire. So those are some of the strategies I kind of use when I'm identifying some potential leaders on our team. Like, who's showing up, what are their strengths, and what space could we invite them into and see what it looks like?
Yeah, and I think for me, it became much easier once I had my mission, vision, and purpose to develop my leaders because they knew it was no longer about me. And, I didn't make things about me because, when we have a small business, a lot of the team, if they're not focused on the mission, vision, purpose, what they're focusing on is I'm working hard to make that person money, the owner. So that becomes, well, he's just doing that or she's just saying that because she wants to make more money. And so we think, and then they're upset. We start throwing money at them. So they're like, see, told you, it's about the money. And it's never about the mission. It's always about the owner. And, rightfully so, because it seems like we're making that. I'm making that about myself. So by having that mission, no, we're here to support this mission and this purpose and this vision. And it has to be real and it has to be heartfelt. It has to be aspirational and inspirational. So once, I move it away from me and I move it to the mission, then you see leadership start to step up because these are the people that are stepping into that support of the mission and its members and also the immutable laws. I know when we have people that are really like not just like they're not compliant about the immutable laws, but they're engaging with the immutable laws. They'll reference it. They will talk about how it's impacted their day or their week or how a customer violated it. So they're living it on a day-to-day basis. And having the tools for people like, are they born a leader or do they learn how to be a leader? Well, I think you could be a born leader to a certain point, but it's only going to get you so far. And you need to start to learn how to be a leader. And a lot of that, using Clifton's strengths, I've always been a leader my whole life, wherever I go. But when I found Clifton's strength, I can use it as a tool to be like, hey, these are the people, these are the members serving the mission. How do I serve them? How do I give them the space to show up every day to perform in their energy and their superpower? And that is a tool, Clifton's strength. So yes, you can be a natural born leader, but then it only gets you so far. Then I also have people in my company that are now leaders in the company that were never a leader anywhere else. But we allowed their superpower to step up. Instead of saying, And, I give these Clifton strength assessments and like, oh, I can never be a leader with those strengths. I'm like, no, you can be an awesome leader as long as you show up with your strengths. And, then we train and teach people how to do that by really owning their superpowers or their super talents and strengths. And we have someone in my company who's in the top tier and never had been in any leadership, and just allowing that strength to show up and support the mission and the members, and giving the tools in this consistent basis. It's been 7 years of development, and now she is in a leadership at a level of mentoring other leaders. So not only has she grown into the leadership role, she's surpassed it to the point where she's showing others how they can step into their strengths and use tools that we have to serve that mission and their members.
Yeah, and I think it's important, like, of course, your team members who are in leadership roles, they absolutely should. And if they don't know this yet, as soon as you're done listening to this podcast, set up a time to have a conversation with your leaders in your company to talk about the mission, vision, and purpose and your immutable laws. Everybody at the leadership level should know that. And if you don't have that figured out yet, take the next, step to get it figured out, and then have the conversation, because I think that that's important that they all know. The other thing I would say is, some of the qualities that need to show up that I've recognized is accountability, right? So any leader in a company, it shouldn't be that conversation of blame or putting it on somebody else. When there's things that happen, they should step in and say, yes, I did that, or hey, that's on me. I didn't communicate that expectation clearly. Let me fix that. So really being open-minded with the, and Steve, we call it desired accountability in the company. What is it exactly? It's desired.
Desired accountability actually sounds better. It was like desired acquired accountability, but desired accountability, I think, is really
Yeah.
it's what it is, because they feel they have this constant desire to not only hold themselves accountable, but hold themselves accountable beyond compliance, beyond the lowest expectation.
Yes.
And when they make a mistake, these are the people on your team, when they goof off or goof up on something, I mean, they are more hard on themselves than we could ever be. They're more upset than we could ever be about little things, big things, because they have that desired accountability. And they also, when they see other people who stumble or struggle with something, they hold them accountable, but they hold them accountable in a way that moves it forward. They're not like, you're wrong, you're stupid, judge your pit, what's wrong with you? They're like, hey, I see you're struggling with that. I also struggled with that. Let me show you how I, overcame that challenge.
Yeah. And so that's, quality showing up of saying, hey, I desire to be accountable. Hold me accountable. When you call them out on stuff, or you're saying, hey, this happened and this was the expected outcome, which isn't what happened. Tell me more about that. They instantly step into, I'm owning that. I see that this is what happened. This is why it didn't happen per the expectation. This is what I want to, change next time. So it's like they really step into solution focused, owning, that the outcome didn't happen. And they're already telling you, hey, this is what we're going to do about it. Another quality that I've seen with potential leaders is they're in front of the problem. And typically, you may not even know about it, that it's happening. They should come back and say, hey, just so you know, this happened, but, this is what we did about it, and this is what we did about it. So, really being in front of the problems, providing the solution, seeing the issues and fixing them, before they happen. And I think some of the other traits too are like high responsibility, right? They want to own things. They want to care for things. They're caring for the business like it's their own. and we talk about our business like it's our baby. Who's taking care of the baby? And it's like, what part are they taking care of? And it's just kind of like this, this fun little saying that we say to her, like, okay, that person's got the baby today. They're making sure everything's going well. So we know that what is most important to us is being cared for by these team members, and they're showing up without us even asking. I think some of the other qualities and traits is they naturally share our core values, or our immutable laws. They are walking the talk, right? Without us even having to correct them. It's part of who they are already, and they're sharing those immutable laws that we have. So those are some of, I think, the qualities and traits that show up. And I agree with you, Steve. It's not about the strengths, right? I know we've had conversations where I'm like, hey, can you look at this team member's strengths? Do you think they could ever be this? Or do you think that they could ever be that? It has given us clarity of the potential of what our team members have the opportunity to be. And it usually is like, well, no, because these strengths are here, they're very focused on these high task things. So they're not going to be futuristic type people. They're not going to be visionaries. And it's like, okay, that's really good to know, right? I can never expect this person to be a visionary. Or we get feedback of, here's the strengths I see, here's the potential I see. So have these types of conversations based off of it. And it really gives every party involved an idea of what qualities are there, what strengths are there, how can this person show up, so we don't have these fixed ideas on how these potential leaders should be and how they're going to show up. We define and clarify that prior. So we're really pulling back our expectations and looking at what ingredients we have and know, well, logically, can we make bread or can we make a cake? Like, what is this? Let's not make the bread be cake, right?
Right. Get it right up front. One of the leadership stories that I love happened just this summer. We were with another couple, and they have two adult boys in their early 20s, 21 and 23. And, the parents have kind of been helicopter parents. And I'm not saying I'm not, but they were definitely helicopter parents. And, at 21 and 23, the boys come over on a Sunday, for Sunday dinner. And the parents and the boys were disagreeing on certain things. And it got to the point where they left. Each son went their own way, and the parents were upset. A week later, we're having breakfast. And then he shared with me, the youngest son called up each parent individually and called up his brother and said, look, that got out of control. I'm sorry for the things I said. I apologize for that. And, we need to get together and spend this time together and, have it be quality time. So they went over there. The next week they had dinner, and they all apologized. They hugged it out, and, they got back as a unified front, as a family. And I said to the dad, do you know what that is? He's like, what? I said, do you know what he did? I said, that's leadership. The leader knows when to apologize and call everybody back together to serve the mission of that family. And he looked at me like, oh my gosh, you're so right. He's like, I'm the dad. I felt I'm supposed to be the leader, and his youngest son was the one that really took leadership in that family to serve that family's mission. So it completely changed in a 10-minute conversation his total viewpoint of his son. And he was not recognizing the leadership ability of his youngest son. But just in that conversation, it completely changed his vision of his son. So that's the leadership too. It's knowing when to say, I'm sorry, we're not serving the mission. Let's bring it all back together and let's move forward.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a great story and example of, ways that people can show up and what it contributes. And then also identifying, like, what's the cost if we don't, right? And we talk about this a lot in some of our other programs. What is the cost? What's the damage? And it's very easy to become a bull in the china shop, but it is much harder. I always say the hard work is when we stop being stubborn. The hard work is when we own our our crap. Like that's the hard work, right? The hard work is when we are brutally honest with ourselves and we're humble and we have the needed conversations with the people around us, whether it be family or our team members. That's the hard work. The hard work is in being honest, humble, and vulnerable. And the easy work is just to plow through and make a mess of things and be stubborn and not hear or see others and, sticking to your guns. That's easy.
And when you're saying what's the cost of that, it's really bringing back some like memories and moments for me, because what's the cost of not doing my mission, vision, and purpose? What's my cost of not developing my leaders? The cost is I'm working 12 hours a day. I'm getting home as my kids are going to bed. My kids and my wife are going to the beach on Saturday, and I'm running around managing crews and doing estimates because I haven't done the real work in business of developing my team and developing the leaders. And then the cost is on Sunday morning, I make breakfast for my family, then I go back to work because I don't have anybody else in my company that I've taken the time to develop so I don't have to do everything. And then that's the cost. It's relationships, that it's time that you never get back. And it also held my company back for decades by not doing that. And once I realized and found ways to do that is when we realized exponential growth, and allowed me to step into, my role as a husband, as a father, as a son, a lot more.
Yeah. So I think it would be great for us to share with our listeners like some tips on how, we have nurtured and developed our potential people, to step into that leadership role and to share, what have we done? What have we seen that's been successful in doing this?
So I had, started developing my team with different programs and different classes, and Clifton Strength and People Map and, the Choice Map. And it was fragmented. It was no timetable or no scale. And then that's how I put together our 1,000-day development plan. It's really taking everything we were already doing, the Gallup, the Clifton Strengths, the Choice Map, the coaching, and putting it in a program and lining it out, and also finding our why, and that why are we showing up every day, what's the why and purpose of the company, and finding people that resonates with, so making sure that we have people, like I have 3 people who are going to be enrolled in the upcoming choice map, change your questions, change your life, the Green Profit Academy mindset coaching. And so we have our whole team. Everyone in my company has taken the Clifton Strengths. So those are some of the things that we're doing. And then we meet and we see how their strengths can align to the mission of the company.
Yeah. So I think it's really important that, you have an onboarding system, right? And that's what you're talking about, Steve, is that educational plan and success path that you have intentionally built out and pulled together over the years. Because we're going to hire people, we're going to bring them on our team, and then they've got to kind of get through, the basic foundation, right? Of like, what do you need to know? What's important to know? How can you be good at your job? How can you be successful? And then there's that next level of continued development. So you're saying, beyond the 90 days, we do this, and then beyond the year, we do this. And I'm hearing what that's doing is you're developing the people on your team and really helping them identify how to step into their greatness. Like, what are they really good at? What do they love? What is it that they want to do? Where's their area of focus? What's possible? Where's their potential? And this is identified through this program that you developed. And every company's program is going to be different. It's like you don't want to wait to roll it out till it's perfect. You want to use what you have and then continue to improve it. And I would advise, because we do this as well, lean into your team to help you make it better, right? The people that's been through it, they're going to have some great ideas of what to add to it or how to roll this thing out. So we've done that at Core, where we've really leaned into our team and we say, well, what can we do better? Where were the friction points in this? What was missing? Where did you feel you got enough and where did you feel that you didn't get enough? So make it a process of something that you're developing over time. It's not going to happen in a year. It's not going to happen in 2 years. I mean, Steve, I would easily guess that yours has been being developed for at least 5 to 6 years, your program.
Absolutely. So we always kind of had a good onboarding program for some reason. I don't know exactly how and why we developed it the way we did, but it was pretty thorough. We developed it over years. We just didn't hire that many people, so we didn't have it really. We didn't have to implement it very often. But once we started hiring people, we had to implement it. And part of our onboarding program is practicing of tasks and duties. And so we know people, the first 2 weeks when someone gets hired somewhere, it's the most stressful. And people are telling them all kinds of things verbally. They give them lots of sheets and paper and books and all kinds of stuff, and it's overwhelming. So we really let people go practice what things they really need to do. We let them go practice things. And it could be loading a truck, unloading a truck, tying things down, filling out paperwork, where they're supposed to park, where they're supposed to put tools away. So people would ask me to talk about my onboarding program, and I gave talks about it in industry events. But then someone asked me the question, "What's next?" And I had no answer. There was nothing after you were onboarded, really. Once a year, we would go to an event. I'd bring a couple of my managers. We'd go for 2 or 3 days, and then they didn't have any contact. Then the next year, you'd go for 2 or 3 days, and that was it. So I really was I was kind of embarrassed about it. Oh yeah, I don't know what, I'm working so hard. I can't do it. So I reached out and found people that's what they do. And, we started enrolling people in that, and we found what was beneficial and what worked and what resonated with my team. And we just did more of it. And, but like I said, it was fragmented. Once we put it in a full program is when we really saw a lot of differences. But you're talking, I didn't do it for the first 25 years of business. So yes, it's not something that we did overnight. And even since we've started it, it's been 6 years, really.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know you were working on yours and I was working on mine. And we invested a ton in, the first year, right? And really it was this whole list of questions to where it's you intentionally set down and it helps you define the expectations. And that was something that we sent over to you guys, and then you guys sent stuff over to us. And, so it really took, looking back at it, is getting together with other entrepreneurs. And I know you and I shared a lot of stuff of well, this is what we're focusing on. And this is, what we're doing. And then your team, Megan, sending things over to us saying, well, okay, this is what we're doing, and really finding what worked for our culture and our company. So what works for one company isn't always going to work for another company. So you really want to kind of pick and choose what's going to support the culture and the growth and nurturing of your team. And I think that's important because, as I've said on other podcasts, what's good for your company, isn't always going to be what's good for John's company isn't going to be good for your company, right? It's not, John's company's not your company, and that's okay. So really recognizing what's special and different about your company and how it needs to be supported. One of the things that we've done that I think has been very helpful that I'll share, that Steve did not touch on, but we have brought people into leadership roles. And one of the things that we did was we sat down and we designed what we call a success path. So we said, okay, here's your current role. Here's the role that we're looking at moving you into. We're going to bring you through a little bit of a mentorship in this role. And then we've listed out what things this person needs to learn, what this looks like, what the timeline is associated with these new learned tasks and roles, and what is the outcome. So what does success look like once we get through, you learning 1, 2, 3 in this area? Okay, when are you going to take that on fully? Okay, 30 days. What does this look like? Now you're going to be pulling these reports. You're going to be reporting these numbers. Maybe it's routing, right? You're going to have 30 days of mentoring on this. So that's going to be in month 2. what does success look like at the end of this? What do we expect? So really defining a path, and it doesn't have to be super detailed, right? You just want to let them know, what is that new task they're going to take on? What does it mean for it to be successful that they took it on? And what is the time frame that you want them to do this? And maybe even ask how they need to be supported. Like, how can I support you in this? This is how I plan on supporting you. Is there anything else that we can do? So that's a really good, thing that we've done, a tip that I'll share, to where we've moved one person from one role into another role successfully, going through the success path, this timeline, and mentoring them. The other thing that I love about this is, of course, when they move into this new role, typically they get a raise, right? So there's money attached to these outcomes. So sometimes we'll tier this raise as they're continuing to move into this role. We'll do, maybe a 1%, 2%, up to 5% increase, depending on what it is. And it's tied to their milestones of taking on different positions in this role. And what I've recognized that it's done is it's not awarding like, oh, you're going to get a $10,000 raise like that, right? You're not awarding the person instantly. It's they're learning and they're earning it. And that changes, their mindset with it, how they're connecting with it. So they feel that their increased pay is truly being earned, and they're being awarded based off of their production. And that's just human nature, right? That's what we want. We see things differently when we work hard for them.
Yeah, right. You just can't throw money at people and expect them to show up. And I think that's one of the biggest frustrations that I hear. They're like, oh, I moved someone up in that position, but they still struggle with this. Well, guess what? No matter who you hire and what position, they're going to struggle with about 20% of their job duties. They can do even me, even you, even anybody. We can only do about 80% of what that job needs. We need somebody else to support us on the 20%. And you'll hear me say this all the time, like, who's on your team that can support you? Because you're supporting people, but you can't be great at everything. Your strengths, you'll just run out of strengths. So it might look like procrastination or they don't care, but it's really they just ran out of strengths. And that's some of the frustration. And then what happens is we become focused on the 20% where they're falling short, and we're not paying attention and honoring the 80% where they're winning. So instead of saying, where are they falling short? And then I ask the question, well, how can I support them? It's like, look at all the money I'm paying them. They should be able to do everything I need. And, I have spent years mad at people for not having conversations about my shared expectations. Like, they should just know that. And now when I hear myself saying that, it's completely ridiculous, because, I should be able to communicate verbally, written, text, email. And, they should just know that is not like a legit management tool. Whether it's my managers or my applicators, they should just know that is not legit. Communicate the expectation is what I learned. And then if they can't do it, you just ask, do they need training? Do they need to be practiced with it? Or are they unwilling or unable or incapable, or, but let's find that out. So I always wonder, like, what's my motivation between not communicating that? What's the fear that's stopping me from communicating that? Is it, it's obviously not a lack of the ability to communicate. So what's the fear that drives that? So, and pushing past whatever fear that is, so everyone can move forward, especially the company. And, I go back to that family story, what was all the fear that was surrounding those arguments? And everyone was afraid to be the first person to apologize, right? And so the strongest person was the one that stepped forward to apologize first. And the strongest leader was the one that recognized they're really there to serve the mission.
Yeah. And I think another thing I'd like to share is the Peter principle, right? And this has come up on many conversations with entrepreneurs over the years, to where they're like, oh, well, this person, I promoted them into this role, and man, they were a really good, like, lead out in the field, but they're a horrible manager. And so it's like, well, let's talk about that, right? And so there's this principle called the Peter principle, to where we're promoting past that person's, traits, skills, talents, and strengths, and being aware of that. And we're really not doing that person a favor, though we think we are. We're like, oh, yeah, this is going to be great. We're going to put them in the manager position. They're going to make more money, all of this stuff. And really, we're putting them, in a pond too big, right? It's like, it's not their type of pond. It's not where their strengths and talents and skills can show up. And just being aware of that as a leader is extremely important. Don't do one of your star players a disservice in putting them in a role that is not serving their strengths and their skills.
And I have someone that works for me, they wanted to be a manager, and when we went over what the responsibilities were and what the activities were, they're like, oh, it was way too peoply for them. So the question I asked was, do you want the money or do the management position? And he's like, I want the money. So it was like, okay, so how can you make the money? What's the new roles that you can take in the company to make more money without being the manager? So we figured that out. And it was just a matter of rearranging responsibility levels, depth of actions and activities that he did. Instead of just doing surface, he took things deeper and a little bit wider, a little more wider. But it wasn't the people. People is not the strength. So just like me, I'm people. I'm not going to create, if you ask me, can you do a pivot table that explains the depreciation acceleration over the past 7 years of our equipment schedule? I'm never going to do that. I'm not creating a pivot sheet in Excel for depreciation acceleration over 7 years. Like, I'll look at the report, but he's that guy, right? So let's get deeper. But you want me to call somebody or talk to somebody? I'm already on it. So you have to realize within ourselves, in our team, where that shows up. But we can't just throw money at people, throw a name on a job title, and expect them to perform that.
Yeah, no matter how much they want it or how much they're pushing it. And even if you go over it and, they're going, oh, I can absolutely do that. And I've experienced this where somebody, they wanted a manager position, they wanted a higher position in the company. They didn't have the experience. They didn't have the skill set. So what I was finding was not only a mess after the fact, right, where I allowed them into that position, but the amount of time that they were spending trying to get things done that I was requesting because they didn't know how, and they were creating their own ways of doing it. So not only did we not have the right person in the right role, they weren't doing the right things, and they weren't doing it at the right time either. They were incapable of doing it, so it's like, as much as they were fighting for that role, they weren't ready for it. And I don't know how long it would have been for them to be ready for it, but it was a huge disservice to put them in that role.
Absolutely, yes. Because a lot of times we want things, and it could be in life, it could be at work, right? How many times have we bought things thinking it's going to make us happy? And it's like, wah, wah. No, it did not. It was not what I thought. You think you want this role, and you get in there and you're like, I did not realize everything that my boss was doing. So we want our boss's job, and then you get there and you're like, oh my gosh, I had no idea that was all that work, because all you saw was what they showed you, and you weren't getting a picture of the whole thing. One of the lessons I learned, my wife went away for 2 weeks to Finland, and I had the kids for 2 weeks, and I learned everything she did. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is a never ending, thankless job. Because, I just showed up and the fridge was full of food. The clothes were clean. The house was clean. The kids were clean. The kids got what they needed to be. And the cats were taken care of and all this. But when she was gone for those 2 weeks, and I think it would have been a couple days, I would have been good. But the 2 week time frame, it completely changed my point of view of like how much work it took to take care of kids in a house and just to feed people. that it sound to me, it was like, oh, because it was already done. And we can look at our bosses and go, oh, that's, oh, the money's always where it needs to be. The equipment's always being bought when it needs to be. People are hired when they need to be hired. People are trained when they need to be trained. The building's taken care of. The equipment is taken care of. Customers just show up, and the marketing is taken care of, and the sales funnel is taken care of. And all of a sudden, when it's thrown in your lap, like, hey, you got to generate your own leads, close your own people, build your own crews, maintain your own equipment, order your own material. Whoa.
Yeah, it's a lot. It is a lot. So yeah, it's interesting how we appreciate our team members or people in higher roles so much more when we have a better understanding of what they are doing on a regular basis. And it's also easier for them because they're working from their strengths and their talents. Surprise.
Yes, right.
So, all right. So to tie up today, this is part 1 of a series. We're going to come back with part 2. But to tie up today, I want to just talk quickly on establishing a leadership development program and like, why does this matter in a small business?
So developing it, we kind of went over having the onboarding and then having the follow-up with the strengths and the coaching. And it matters so much because it's what actually gives the owner life. It allows the owner to have the life the life their family deserves. My wife did not marry my business. We just celebrated our 32nd anniversary, and I was looking at wedding photos. It was just me up there. It was not me in American Landscape and Lawn Science. It was just me. So, it allows us to live up to our promises. It allows us to live up to the commitments we made to our friends, our family, and it also gives the business life. It allows the business to live and develop the life that it really deserves from the very reason we started it. Because I've spent years in the way of my own business. And when I got out of the way of other people in my business and out of the way of my business, then it could live its life that it was really meant to live.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's important, right? It's the concept of clockworking your business, right? You need the leadership team there to support you in order for you to step out or to step out of certain roles and areas of your business, and this takes time. So the other thing that I have gotten feedback on is not just a leadership development program, but an overall onboarding and development program for the team. So it, 2 birds, 1 stone, right? Is it lets them know what's coming, what's ahead, right? Like if you're going to go on a trip, you're not just going to go on a trip and go, oh, well, we're here. I wonder what we're going to do, right? So you plan it out. So the journey is the same when you hire somebody. Hiring somebody and then changing jobs is the most stressful thing that they go through in their life. It's like, moving, having a baby, buying a house, right? Getting married, it's a big, huge life change and it has a heavy impact. So what we have found that the feedback we've gotten is when you guys handed me this path of what's coming, it really settled my nerves and I didn't have as much anxiety. I wasn't as nervous. I knew what to expect. And then I got excited about it. So it went from this anxiety-ridden mindset to this excited mindset of what's coming and what they have to look forward to. And it's whether you're onboarding somebody or you're developing them as a leader, they want to know, most humans want to know what that means. They're not going to jump in a car blindly and just let you drive them somewhere. They jump in and they go, where are we going? What's our destination? How long are we going to be there? What are we going to do? Well, should I dress warm? Should I bring cooler clothes? Like, what does this look like? So we can't expect people who join our team and grow on our team, whether they're new hires or leaders, to not have some sort of designed path. It's not fair for us to ask them to do that when it's not even in their human nature.
Expectations, it's the first rule of the hierarchy of engagement.
Yeah, and some of it is the expectations, right? Because we all have them, whether we define them or not, is going to affect the outcome that we're looking for and it's going to affect whether we're disappointed or we're extremely happy about it, right? So how are we going to deliver those expectations, and how are we going to ensure that they're received? And Steve, you and I were talking about this the other day, like, what are some of the key components of effective leadership development? Like, where should they start? And we've thought about this with our leadership program over at, at GPA, where we've went, well, what should they take first and why? What are some of the things that will definitely impact the outcome of what you're going to teach them as you move through your development program or move through the training or onboarding in a company?
So, one of the things, and you were saying, share these expectations, and we're going to tell them what the opportunities are, what they go to, because if we don't share our narrative, they create their own. And we don't want people just creating a narrative without any information, right? So the first step is really the choice map, the mindset work. In the next step is the Clifton Strength, the Gallup Clifton Strength, really naming, claiming, and aiming your strengths and talents. And then, developing that at a higher level that we did on the retreat, where these emerging leaders are coming together and they're bringing their challenges and they're developing their Q storming, question storming abilities to create that mindset that overcomes challenges. So those are the first places to start. The other thing for the owner is to know and understand fully the mission, vision, and purpose in their immutable laws. So for the emerging leaders, that mindset and the Clifton Strengths is really the starting place. But for the owner, it's that mission, vision, purpose, and immutable laws, and getting that out there. It's wonderful. People walk in and read it. We share our mission on Facebook. It is our most liked post by 4x, 4 times more than any other post that we do. And it continually gets likes because it's authentic and it's real and it's connecting, right, to people, and it's meaningful. So those are the two paths. One for the owner to develop that, and then the owner should also take the Clifton Strengths. So they're living every day and supporting their team and through their strengths, and also the mindset. That's where I started, and it really changed. I had people come up to me after I had done the mindset coaching and the Clifton Strengths, who knew me 4 years earlier, and literally come up to me and say that you are a different person.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, even now, Steve, like looking at you from years ago to sitting across from you now, you are a different person. I think we both are different people, from going through all of this leadership development ourselves.
Yes. And going back to like earlier, I said, what am I afraid of when I don't share my expectations, right? It's that fear of change. It's that fear of I'm not enough. Am I going to be enough? If I show up this way as that leader, is that enough? And it's really, for you've stepped into your authentic self. It's really allowed me to show up as who I am. And, it's so much more honest, open, vulnerable, and authentic. And it's a magnet to attract talent and people to our company, employees, team members, vendors, and clients.
Yeah. And so what I'm hearing is, and reflecting back on this journey, like what I've seen is it's really starting with the right mindset, right? Learning how to have that learner growth mindset and gathering the tools to navigate the storms that we're going to come across in our business and in our life, whether this is us as business owners or our emerging leaders, or even some of our other team members, right, that we're developing, and they are contributing, to the overall success of the business. So just making sure that we have that healthy growth, positive mindset to where we're supporting each other and we're not tearing each other down. We're not blaming each other. We're not throwing each other under the bus and running them over. Everybody's showing up and they're being accountable. So that's what I'm hearing is that's a really great first foundational step is let's get a great mindset on being a team and how we can really, feel good every day showing up here, asking different questions. And that's what the Unlocking Your Growth Mindset workshop that we have that really supports. And I know it's changed my company culture. It has changed my family. It has changed my relationship with my husband and my children. So, I mean, it's very, very powerful. And even, my friendships with people. The next stage that I'm hearing is then identify what your strengths are and how they support what you're doing in your in the business, in your role, and then how they're supporting others. And once you have that figured out, then you move on to what are the strengths of your team members? Who's on your team? How did they show up? How did they support others? What are their skills and talents? And then it opens up this entire other conversation of what opportunities do we have, or what changes do we need to make to where we can work together more effectively, cohesive, and efficiently. Like, what does this look like? And be happy doing it to where we're all highly productive, which in turn makes more profit in the business, which is important. And then, supports the team members, right? Because then you can pay them more. Everybody gets paid more when the company's more profitable. So that's kind of the beginning path that I'm hearing and that we've recognized is, one, give them a path. What mindset do we need to have to show up? What are our strengths? What are our team's strengths? And then moving on to as well that mission, vision, and purpose, and raising that awareness around the mission, vision, and purpose, and making it part of the language and conversation, not just with the owner, with the leadership team and the company as a whole. The leaders are communicating it to the rest of the team. The owner is communicating it to the leaders. So it's a group effort.
You nailed that reflection. Awesome. Good job. Very impressive. Yeah, absolutely. Good way to wrap that up, Christine. I appreciate that.
Awesome. All right. So we're going to tie up this part 1 of this, and we look forward to y'all coming back next week and listening to part 2, where we're going to continue to dive into developing and growing your leadership team in your business.
Thanks for listening to the Green Profit Academy Pros Podcast,
the show that digs into the challenges of growing a lawn care and landscape business while maximizing your profit.